So this lesson is right at the beginning of a new unit. We're about to do a unit that's basically about thermodynamics and how temperature and heat and thermal energy all relate together. This is something that the students will have seen before in 10th grade, or because we're an international school, students coming in from other schools. So the key thing that I want to address in the warm welcome is how much prior learning do the students have. So the first activity was a brainstorming activity. The students have different colour post-its, and they're going to write down any facts that they can remember about solids, liquids and gases, just to be able to start them thinking about how does temperature relate to these three different properties. So we spent about 5 minutes on that type of activity. This will lead to a visual, and I took a picture of the visual, and that will be something that I can post on the slides later, and the students will be able to go back and look at that visual of what happened. So after that, we'll transition to looking more directly at some of the key concepts. One of the important things in the IB is really understanding vocabulary, and vocabulary in the International Baccalaureate programme has very, very specific meanings. So it's super important that the students understand those pieces of vocabulary deeply. We're also a school where we have students coming from all over the world, and different words have slightly different meanings when translated back into their own language. So we're going to spend some time really understanding the vocabulary of this unit, because it does make a difference. Words that we use commonly in the English language have very specific meanings. So the students are going to be given a matching activity, where they're going to be given the word and they're going to be given the definition, and in pairs they're going to compare those two words together. And then we'll jigsaw it around. Certain groups will get together to be able to make sure that they really understood that word, and then we'll take it back to the partner and make any corrections to those words. Then one of the things that we believe at ISP is that the student should have choice. So in our meaningful middle, we want to be able to give the students a certain amount of autonomy. So I prepared one tool with artificial intelligence, where the students will be able to see a visual and they'll be able to talk to it using Snorkel to be able to address some of the words, some of the concepts that they've just used a specific vocabulary, and put that vocabulary to practice. Some students prefer to address these types of topics through the mathematics, so there's a more standard worksheet with lots of calculations that the students can practice the skills. They'll be using the specific heat capacity, latent heat to do calculations. So the third choice that I'm giving to the students is using Flint. So there is a nice video that explains some of these concepts, and using Flint you can use the AI to put questions for the students, and the students will have to think about how these words are connecting to the phenomena that they're watching, and practice using thermal energy, heat, transfer of energy, and put those words into practice by answering those specific questions. So that's the student autonomy part of the class. That's where they're going to have control over where they're taking their learning. Now, ideally, the students will probably use a mix of those things. It's important that they practice vocabulary. It's important that they practice doing the calculations, but what they want to do in that specific moment is up to them. And they can work together in small groups, they can work individually. Some students will sit with their headphones, some students prefer to use the time to work collaboratively, and that's totally up to them. As long as they're learning, give them the choice. The intentional closing for this particular class will just be to recap some of the vocabulary that we've done. It might seem that this is a physics class and we're spending a lot of time doing English, learning these concepts, but we are all here to help the students improve their English, and using these words in very specific contexts is extremely important, and a skill that I feel really does require time and dedication as much as doing the mathematical part of physics. So student engagement is super important, and we know as adults that we're much happier when we have control over what it is that we're doing at that particular moment in time. Everyone feels what do they need at that moment, and by giving them these choice of these different activities, which is not complete free choice, I'm not allowing the students to just do whatever they want, but by giving them some control over what they want to do, how they can take control of their learning, then they're going to be much more engaged with the concepts. And I'm not dictating what they need to do. I have students who are extremely strong in the mathematics. They probably don't need to practice simple calculations. They can probably jump to the question 7 that I've put on the worksheet, where the concepts get more complicated. However, a lot of those students who are strong in mathematics aren't necessarily as strong when it comes to defining the word, understanding how the word is connected. And so by giving them the choice of the types of questions that the IB is ultimately going to be giving them, they feel that they're empowered to make those decisions for themselves. So that connects back to the ISP way of engagement. So all the students have very, very different needs. The IB questions are at this level here, and some of the students are able to go straight from the knowledge, from the mini lesson that we'll have on understanding, to be able to address those IB questions. But some of the students cannot, and so they need to be able to bridge that gap. And so it goes back to Vygotsky's area of proximal development. So I've created worksheets and learning activities and the use of these tools from AI, from Flint and Snorkel, to be able to allow students to find where they are on that journey and to have resources that are available for all of the students to be able to rise them up to hopefully get all of the students able to answer the IB questions. Ultimately, that's what they've got to be able to do. And some of the students can go direct, some of the students it's a much more complicated journey to get there. But by having a range of resources, the students can find the ones that are useful to them. And again, it comes back to their autonomy and then being able to take control of their learning.